This is Bucks and 60.
What in the world, Giannis?
Bucks and 60.
Three-pointer flies. And he's got another one. Damian Lillard doing what he does.
It's Bucks and 60.
The long wait has ended. After a half century, the Milwaukee Bucks are NBA champions once again.
Now here's your host, Trey Crosby.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. What a night it was last night. We are live at the game. Milwaukee, Madison, what's going on? Appreciate everybody out there listening to us. You are tuned in, locked into another edition, special edition of Bucks in 60. This time going 6 to 7 on a Wednesday afternoon / evening. It's the Guru, Trey Crosby III.
JT.
Hosted by Andrew, of course. And man, what a game last night. What a game last night. The Bucks extend the series. The Bucks keep their lives ahead of them. They keep it together. 115-92. They beat the Indiana Pacers. No Dame, no Giannis, all the above. But no problem. As again, you're getting the performance of a lifetime. A lot of questions. And the crazy thing is, JT, there were so many questions about this guy. So many questions. Do you want to keep him around? He's too old. What's he gonna look like? You know what Giannis is gonna give you. You know what Dame's gonna give you. But what in the playoffs? But what is Chris Middleton gonna? That's the wild card, the X factor. And of course, it all turns on its head because you did have Dame for a couple games, but you haven't had Dame for the entire series. You haven't had Giannis you haven't had Dame for some parts of the series. Haven't had Giannis at all in this series. And Chris Middleton is just absolutely playing like a madman, like when Kendrick Perkins used to call him Batman. That's what Chris Middleton's giving you right now. Puts up 29 and 12 last night to keep the Bucks season alive. He was just phenomenal. 40 minutes. He's playing at a high level. Tough shot, express, all the above. Doing some things that you just have not seen in some time. I think there was a stat talking about. He's like the 12th player in NBA, the 12th player to have, I think, 4 games in a row in the playoffs of 25, I think 25, 5 and 5. And I think there were like 12 guys that have done that. All of them Hall of Famers. The worst player on that list. I mean, again, this list has got Kareem, Giannis, Joker, a lot of heavy hitters on that list. And the worst player on that list is Chris Middleton, but it's Russell Westbrook. So, I mean, these are all like Tim Duncan's on the list. They're top 20 players, and then Chris Middleton is there doing what he does. So, again, he's having a one heck of a playoff run. You can talk to us at the NicoletLaw.com talk and text line 414-799-1973.
73.
But before we get to some of your text, though, JT, I just want to get your initial thoughts. Last night, as the Bucks get the series to 3-2, and we're headed back to Indiana. Bucks could have let go of the rope, but absolutely not. No, sir. They outscored the Pacers. They did what they had to do, and they held the Indiana Pacers to under 100 points. They only scored 92. A really nice job by Doc Rivers, by Chris Middleton, by Bobby Portis, by Patrick Beverley. I mean, there's so many different ways you can go about how that game went last night. But JT, give me your initial impressions after you've had a day to kind of digest what you saw at the Fiserv Forum last night.
The simple answer or the simple analysis is that sometimes experience beats youth. It beats talent, right? It beats speed. Speed's quickness, right? It's like a kid playing their dad in basketball, right? They maybe have a little bit more agility, may be able to get from places to point A to point B, but the dad's got that knowledge, and that's kind of what that was last night. Was the Bucks just put on a clinic, and even the announcers said, "Hey, the Bucks don't want to get into a foot race with these guys, or they don't want to, don't really want to try to trade blows here because they're not sure. They think they're probably a little bit too old and too slow to keep up, but they didn't need to because they controlled it, and they made the Pacers play the Bucks game." A couple things, man. That first half, beautiful. How about Patrick Beverley and the impact he had? I mean, 12 points in the second, and just the way he was playing. I love how he didn't back down the Obi Toppin when Obi Toppin, whatever lame shove that was. And just love how he responded because on that next possession, he came down and he got the and one. And so I think that energy was infectious. Bobby Portis, let's talk about it. Look, we were very disappointed in what Bobby Portis did on Sunday, right? We said what is this, and we were all very frustrated that a seasoned vet would go out that way. But you know what? Last night he responded the way he was supposed to. Had 29 points last night and 18 in the second half. Another thing you think about, let's talk about Malik Beasley. Malik Beasley had all of his scoring was in the second half last night. And in the beginning, right, it looked a little bit like this may be more of the same for Malik Beasley. The first half was very slow. He actually didn't have any shots. He had no shots at all in that first half. It's like, all right, so it was Malik out there being just a guy. He showed you that wasn't it. Malik Beasley, 18 points in that second half, 4 for 6 from 3. I thought last night's win was really just a win in the aggregate. Everybody chipped in. All 5 starters in double figures. Chris Middleton showing that he's a playoff riser, trying to put the team on his back. Brooke Lopez with good contributions. Obviously, Bobby, Pat Bev, Beasley, but even Pat Connaughton. Pat Connaughton played well last night. Again, he had 9 points, but he was 4 for 6 and made some plays there, right? Hit that key 3 as well. I mean, I thought last night's team was just everybody chipping in. You show what experience means in the playoffs, and let's hope we can build upon it and win the next game.
Well, that's what you're looking to do. And you talk about, even you said even Pat Connaughton. How about even Danilo Gallinari putting in 4 points and 6 boards in 20 minutes? That was probably the one I didn't expect out of everybody. We have Doc Rivers getting into his bag and looking down the bench, and you look at Danilo Gallinari, and it worked. It absolutely worked. Everything that even at halftime, when you make the adjustment at halftime to have some to put Brooke Lopez on to Neesmith, that worked. Everything was good. The Bucks did a good job. And again, we talked about last night in the Cream City crossover. You can't, it's very hard, especially against a team like Indiana. Very hard to run Brooke Lopez as a just in a drop. You have to have him playing out a perimeter, and the first 5 minutes or so, it was rough, but he settled in and did a really good job. Let's go to the text lines. Mike in the OC says if Giannis can come back for Game 6, the Bucks will win. It'll be very tough to win at Indy without him. They're missing his offense and defense in the paint immensely. If Bucks win Game 6, no reason they can't win Game 7 too. That is 100% correct. Okay, let me go ahead, JT. I'm having an audio. Let me 1 sec. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, so wait a minute, right? And when you talk about that, let's talk about last night's win for a second, right? Because I don't want to, before we transition off of this, you watch how the Bucks chipped in and they won it last night, and they played that inspired basketball. And you saw a couple things I want to point out. You realize the Pacers had 17 points in that second and followed up with a strong 19 in that third. But one thing that I think is not getting a lot of credit was the adjustments made by Doc after halftime, right? We make these jokes on the Cream City crossover, and we're halfway joking when we say guys are in the locker room at halftime drinking Capri Sun, eating oranges, doing whatever, right? And then they come out and they look lethargic in that third. Did you realize last time, for the first time in a long time, that third quarter was the Bucks' strongest quarter? Like, you realize the Bucks came out in that third quarter with a very strong 34 points. And I think that, that's credit to Doc. You got to give Doc credit for the adjustments. You 100% do. And I can't talk enough about this, though, but between the pick and roll, Pat Bev's ability to disrupt, and Halliburton has not been in a groove this entire time. I think he's hit his season average 1 time here, but for the most part, it's been kind of a non-factor. I think that's something that needs to be talked about as well. Bobby Portis's redemption certainly needs to be talked about as well. The fact that Siakam was playing larger than life the first two games, and now he's just a guy, right? Siakam, he's just a guy. We don't have to worry about it. And I think Bobby Portis has done a great job on him. So there's a lot of adjustments there, a lot of stuff that we can learn from leading up into this next game. And really, I'm looking forward to hopefully one of our stars returning for the game afterwards, because it's not impossible for the Bucks to win this series. But again, every game is Game 7 at this point.
Well, you're right. It's not impossible for that to take place, and it honestly it should. And but here's the thing. Here's where we're going. And so I know that I've been reading the tea leaves and trying to find what I can find and been hearing some different things. And basically, here's where we are with you talked about, and Mike and the OC was talking about, what happened? Can we get Giannis back? There is a chance. I know the injury report came out. He was doubtful along with Damian Lillard. It sounds as if there is a chance that Giannis will make a run at it come tomorrow night. That's everything I'm hearing. I've pieced it together, hodgepodge with some things that I've heard from some other people. There is a chance that Giannis gives it a go tomorrow night. Now, and this is something that I also because we've talked about this as well, JT, whether or not Giannis should play, if he's injured, if he's not injured, should you play him at all? This is, like you said, every time out now is a game 7. That's where the Bucks are. That's where the season is. Your backs are against the wall. You saw it last night. Giannis will not be 100%. Again, as of Tuesday, Giannis could not run he could not run at full stride. So he couldn't fully open up and run. So that's where you are as you can think about that. That's where his health is on a Tuesday. He's going to try. It sounds like he may give it a go on a Thursday. I heard it was good at 60-40. But again, regardless of the fact, it looks like he may do it. I asked about Damian Lillard. The answer I got on Dame is don't see that happening as far as Damian Lillard's health. So if I had to guess from trying to add it all up to sum of all pieces here, it seems like Giannis is advocating and is wanting to play. He's not going to be 100% healthy. This is the scenario, JT, that you kind of talked about, where does Giannis come back not fully healthy and potentially injure himself? Is it worth it? And again, you know the type of competitor Giannis is. I still think from a mental standpoint, if the Pacers see Giannis walking through that door, if the Pacers look up and Giannis tomorrow is now questionable, and next thing you know, they're announcing Giannis in the starting line, that hurdle is going to be very hard to overcome from a mental standpoint, provided he can at least run and do the normal things that you'd expect to see him do. Is he going to be 100%? Absolutely not. But again, I'm hearing positive things about the potential for Giannis Antetokounmpo stepping on the floor Thursday night in the Game 6.
So here's what I'm thinking. What if Giannis comes back in unlimited capacity for a game or two, right? What if Giannis in this first round, what if he comes back and only plays 20 minutes? I still think that if those are hard 20 minutes and he comes back and at least they have him on the minutes restriction, but he comes out there and contributes, I think that could be enough to help the Bucks win. I certainly do. I mean, granted, what do we really want, right? We want Giannis going for 40 minutes because we know if Giannis goes for 40 minutes against the Pacers, he's going to have 60 points. But I think if they're still nervous about Giannis and he can go to an extent, I would agree with him playing, and maybe you just dial it back. It's not great to have a minutes restriction, but having Giannis out there with his presence, if that's what it takes, I'd be open to that.
I'm definitely open to it. Again, I'm feeling good about what we saw. If you're a Bucks fan, you have to be feeling good. Tim and Shaw says, write down, brother Pat B was a dog last night. You saw him doing the too small. Again, man, electrifying. And you talked about JT at the opening of the show. And again, 13 points for Patrick Beverley. And 13 points for Pat Beverley is like, that's like 20, 25 because of the impact from somebody else. That's how big of a moment Patrick Beverley had and what he was doing last night. And you talked about the issue with Obi Toppin, and he didn't lose his head. He didn't lose his cool. He stood right there and knew what the moment was. It was all about winning. That's what this moment was about for Patrick Beverley. He didn't care about anything else. And that's what you want to see. That's all you want to see. And after the game, he goes and records a podcast. He had a great quote on his podcast. And they were talking about how good he was playing and how the Bucks didn't give up and how he walked. And he said, I'm just trying to get lost in basketball. That's what I'm trying to do, get lost in basketball. I can't sum it up any better than that. That's what you're looking for. And the Bucks got lost in basketball last night. It was a euphoric atmosphere to build off for Kendrick Lamar and his diss back to Trey. That's what we saw. It was fun. The crowd was great. Everybody was great. And again, there's something for those rally towels. 2-0 in the rally towels, 0-1 with the shirt. And listen, if they get this thing back to Game 7, don't you dare on the seats for fans to wear. Rally towels all the way. That's the way to go. The Bucks get a big win. We'll come back. We'll get to take your calls, take your texts, develop on the NicoletLaw.com talk and text line right here on Bucks and 60. Return more from the game right now.
It's Bucks in 60. Now here's your host, Trey Crosby.
Got it live, Bucks in 60. Oh man, what a night last night. Can't get over it. Again, back against the wall. Everybody in the street over. I have friends texting me, "Hey, come sit on the couch. You about to go into the cold practice," and the Bucks just pound anyway. JT, I want to know from you, like, what were you most impressed by last night? Was it Chris? Was it Bobby? Was it Beverly? Was it Beasley? Was it Doc Rivers? Like what impressed you the most about last night's victory over the Indiana Pacers?
So one, that third quarter, right? The halftime adjustments by God. We've always talked about the team. I don't know what it is. Relatively lackadaisical for that first easily 7 to 8 minutes for the third quarter. You didn't see that last night. But if I want to go with something that I think impressed me the most, I got to say Bobby's response. The fact that he came out and showed, the fact that he came out with 29 points and he had 29 and 10 after going through what he went through on Sunday and knowing that he hurt the team and knowing that, listen, the team maybe would have won, maybe would have won that game had he stayed in, coming out, playing locked in, especially that explosion of 18 in the second half. Got to give him credit for responding like that, because I think that's what you got to do, right? If you make a mistake like this, especially in the playoffs, you gotta make up for that. And I think last night, although the mistake was a little bit silly on Sunday, he did that. He did his part. So I'm kind of conflicted. Is it Bobby that I'm most impressed with, or is it Chris Middleton, who has just looks like he's putting this team on his back? And for all the doubts about athleticism, age, speed, durability, he's erased all that and has really kind of overachieved in this Pacers series.
Well, the funny part about that is I think we all talk about Chris Middleton, what he's done offensively. Everybody talks about the shooting and the splits and putting up 29 last night and some. But the thing that we all thought, I think everybody would admit that one of the things they thought was cooked was his defense. And I don't even think that's getting enough praise, is what he did on the defensive end, guarding Pascal Siakam at times, getting in, doing the dirty work. Like, he moved his feet, he battled in the post, like all those things defensively. Chris Middleton, like I would almost argue he was just as good offensively as he was, or he was just as good defensively as he was offensively. I mean, it was a masterful performance for Chris Middleton. But speaking of Bobby Portis, I think we have Bobby Portis. You talked about he had to apologize to his teammates and all that after, for the actions that he committed in Game 4. It comes out Game 5 with a big night. And we have post-game audio from Bobby Portis after the game last night.
I'm an emotional player. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I give my all every night. I take pride on being available for my team. So, Game 4, little scuffle, whatever it is, maybe cross the line. You feel me? I let my team down by getting ejected and not being available for my team. And I pride myself so much with being available. So I owe them an apology for sure, just to let them know that, what I did wasn't right. Obviously, during the moment, you feel like that you didn't do nothing. As you sit in the locker room, as the first quarter goes by and the second quarter goes by, and the whole game, you just sit there and be like, damn, I could have helped impact the game. So just let my teammates know that, my bad. I apologize for, letting the team down, and I'm going to come out tonight and play as hard as I could.
Yeah, and he's not wrong, and I'm glad that he did the apologies and he got himself together, and because he did cost the Bucks. Because again, who knows? Again, 2 games now. It's hard to think about this in the playoffs because you look at the Knicks series, and I'm sure the Knicks and Philly both think the Knicks let one slip away, Phillies let one slip away. Like I'm sure you can go back and always think about the games that you missed, that you didn't win, that you should have won. But if you're the Bucks, I mean, this has been a series of missed opportunities where Game 3, I mean, you're talking about Bobby, talking about Brooke, you get a rebound, who knows, maybe that one ends differently. And then Game 4, we talked about it over and over. And I know I talked about it linked after Game 4. It's like that game was not, I mean, the Bucks were in that game. There was a 10, 12-point game throughout the night. The Bucks had so many opportunities, and you just have to think, like, if you have Bobby Portis there, how does that thing fare out even in Indiana? I don't know. But I'll say this too about Chris and Bobby, and I'm looking at him, right? 29 and 12 for Chris, 29 and 10 for Bobby. Like, Bobby is doing something where he's having to go above and beyond his role. And that's what you have to do when you have guys out. And because, like, if I told you that Damian, that was, if I erased that was Chris Middleton, Bobby Portis, and I told you that Damian Lillard had 29 and 10, and Chris and Giannis had 29 and 12, you would probably, okay, but that's 60 between my 2 best players. maybe we can, who knows what Chris Middleton, maybe we can even that thing out, and who knows what the Bucks end up with. Like, that's what Chris Middleton and Bobby Portis recreated last night. They recreated Giannis and Dame. And that's what you have to do. It's a collective effort. And then that's when, like, your role players. So imagine what's happening now that 18 points from Malik Beasley is so much larger. It's so much bigger. Now dropping another 12 from Brook Lopez. Like, that's what you want from your guys. And that's what you're going to have in Indiana. I asked you this, JT. How do the Bucks, and again, we don't know the status. We don't know what's going to happen with Giannis. We don't know how healthy he will be. Again, if I was a betting man right now, I would bet that Giannis gives it an attempt, because that's what I've been hearing. But let's say they aren't there. Let's say you have to do without Giannis. Can the Bucks recreate what they just did last night? I'll say this. I don't think they can recreate it twice, but can they do it? Can they do it one more time in a game 6? And then maybe, like you said, Giannis a little more healthy or whatever. Like, can you do it one more time in Indiana? Because it's one thing to do it on your home floor, backs against the wall, feeding off of that energy, Pat Bev going crazy. Can you do it in Indiana?
I think it'd be tough to create the magic the way you did last night. I think that you probably only get 1 or 2 games like that for an entire playoff series. Having said that, though, I do think that some of it you can. I definitely think you can with the pick and roll. I think with Pat Bev feeling it. I certainly think that I don't expect Malik Beasley to come off the bench or come out in the second half and have 18 points. But could he be a more efficient shooter, better shot selection, yes. Can Bobby Portis? Yes. Because again, the Pacers can't defend. That's the other thing. They can't defend. Now, where I think the biggest difference may be, it's rare that you're going to see the Pacers only make 12 threes at this point. They were 12 for 38 last night, shot 31%. I don't know if you can count on that. I don't know if you can count on this Pacers team to score under 100 points again. I mean, again, they scored last night. What was their season average? 123?
Not sure. I know it's obviously very high. One of the best offenses in the NBA.
So yeah, let's just say it's 120, right? Let's say I'm exaggerating here, but even then, to score roughly 30 points on the I mean, I just don't think you can do that. I think you're going to need offensive output again. So yeah, I think we can do that, but again, everybody's got to be locked in. We're going to need a big performance from Chris. You're going to need a big performance from Bobby. You're going to need a decent performance from Brooke. You're going to need Pat Bev to give you something. Pat Bev gave you 13 last night. You're going to probably need at least 10 from him if you want to try to beat this team again. But really, I think your bench guys, right? Last night, you really didn't get a ton from your bench, but I think Pat Connaughton, he's got to come in and hit shots. We talked about Andre Jackson Jr. before, even though he really didn't play much last night. But I kind of think, if you really want to do this again, or if you really want to win this next game, I think you're going to need him giving you valuable minutes and letting him impact the perimeter defense as well. I think you're going to need him out there too.
You're gonna need all of that. You're gonna need all of that and some for the Bucks to get that magic. And you talked about the defense and what you have to do. And again, I get the scheme because again, you just can't. We talked about at the beginning of the show. You just can't sit and drop. You just can't do it. You have to play out in the perimeter. Now you talked about the 3-point shooting from the Indiana Pacers. Can you recreate some of that defense and force them to miss shots? You can't force guys to miss shots, but you can make it tougher to hit those shots. You can be out there, and that's all you ask for. Can you put a hand up? I can't give you warm up jumpers. Like, there is a difference in Miles Turner. It's much easier to go 7 for 9 when you're getting from 3, when you're getting warm up jumpers all night, open from the corner, open from the top of the key, because Brook Lopez is swift in the lane. Versus guys actually getting out, making those rotations. The Bucks played air on fire defense last night for a lot of the game, and they created turnovers, and they forced turnovers, and they forced bad passes and errant throws, and they really mixed the coverages up, and they confused Indiana. I think Rick Carl's going to come out with a totally different game plan. But when I saw Indiana, it was one of those things where, especially when the third quarter began, that's when the Bucks really made their run. It was one of those things where Doc Rivers went in halftime, he talked about it, made his adjustments, And when he did that, Indiana looked very confused for the first 3 or 4 minutes of the second half. And sometimes that's all you need to get that little bit of separation to break away. And it just took Indiana much too long to understand and realize we can't keep shooting threes. The threes aren't, number one, they're not hitting. Number two, the Bucks are getting out there and rotating. We need to go inside. But by the time they made that decision, well, not only had they let the Bucks, just chip away at them offensively, but even on the defensive side of the ball, they weren't able to get inside like they wanted to do, which makes sense. They took way too long to make the adjustment. And I thought the Bucks were just fast. They were faster to the punch in every aspect. They got to the rebound. They out-rebounded Indiana. They got to loose balls. Doc made adjustments before Rick Carlisle. Like everything the Indiana did, it was like if it was a boxing match. The Bucks, the Indiana was on their heels and backpedaling and on the ropes and trying to figure out how to fight off the ropes. The Bucks were the aggressors the entire game. They were marching forward the entire game, and at no point outside of that very first quarter, when Indiana hit threes, I think they were up 10 in the first. Did Indiana really put any pressure on the Bucks? The Bucks were just the aggressors the entire time, and that's what you want to see. You had for one of the first time in the series, you had Indiana as being reactionary instead of proactive. They were reactive for the majority of that game.
Exactly. But so think about that for a second, though. Indiana being reactive, right? How often? I mean, because we know this Pacers team can't play defense, right? We know they can't play defense. We don't worry about that, right? But I guess the question that you really have to ask them: how often, with the pace that they play at and with the offensive output how often have you seen them struggling with another team, just completely off, just having no answers, having nothing they can't stop? Like, how often have we seen this Pacers team in this position?
Yeah, offensively, not often. Not often have you seen them out of you. I don't know if you heard the broadcast last night. They were calling their offense. This is like the Golden State Warriors. I'm like, come on now, they're not the Golden State Warriors. But it was. Yes, they did not know what to do with the Milwaukee Bucks. Again, that was the epitome of playoff basketball, where you had a veteran-led team playing against a young team. And I'm not sure if Indiana came in cocky. I'm not sure if they just thought this is going to be easy. No Giannis, no Dame. The Bucks are going to roll over. I don't know if that was the thought process or if it was just, hey, we haven't been here before. We haven't closed games out. And I mean, I'm almost tempted to give Indiana an excuse of, sometimes we say, yeah, like you've been here before. They've never been here before. They have not seen this. Only Pascal Siakam has seen anything like this. And so this was a different moment. And this is a moment that a Pat Connaughton, even a Malik Beasley, a Patrick Beverly, a Chris Middleton for sure, a Bobby Portis for sure. All of these guys have been a part of big-time games going down the stretch into the playoffs. And the Bucks looked like they were prepared for the moment, and Indiana didn't. Much like game one when the playoffs started, the Bucks looked more prepared for the moment than Indiana. This was a closeout game for Indiana, and the Bucks looked more prepared for an elimination game than Indiana looked like they were prepared for a closeout game. We'll see if they change the tide on that in game 6. But I will tell you again, I agree. I think we had a couple of texts come in. If game 6 doesn't go their way, I mean, you're looking at a scary sight coming back to Milwaukee for game 7. We got on the phone lines, our guy, the K-Man is out in Hawaii. What's going on? What's going on? You're on Bucks and 60.
Aloha, guys. Love the show. Wish there was more Bucks talk. Listen to you guys all the time. Hey, if Giannis was close to going last game, he's got to play this game. I mean, this is what he gets paid for. It's surprising to me. It sounds like, I mean, he's being a little soft. I mean, this is it. I mean, this is where you earn your fame and your money. I see them winning if Giannis plays, if Dame plays. I mean, Chris is playing out of his mind right now. I don't know if he's playing for a new deal with another team or, making more money or what's going on. But I see them beating the Knicks or Philly if they get by these guys, if Giannis plays. I see them beating Boston without Porzingis. I see them beating Minnesota. I mean, I know I talk crazy, but really, I really do. But he's got to play. Otherwise, man, I don't know, Giannis. disappointing me.
Well, here's the thing. You say that he's disappointing you, but I would say this: he has not been close to playing. He just has not. As of Tuesday, he could not run full speed. So this is not a thing where they're holding him out for precautionary reasons or anything like that. He legitimately cannot go. And I will tell you, if he goes in Game 6, he will. I don't want to say he's going against doctor's orders, but I'll say this: he is not ready to go. Like that is clear from my understanding. He just is not ready to go. And so I don't think it's an issue of him being soft or anything like that. He cannot play, and this is going to be him just kind of pushing to play and doing all that he can. But I will say he can't. He really can't go. And in Game 5, he really wasn't. He was not close to going in Game 5 either. He hasn't even like if you think about it, when you think about somebody being close to playing, they would go do a shoot around that morning. Maybe it's a game time decision. He hasn't participated in any of those individual warm-ups to try to get himself ready to go. So I would just push back on that notion that he is like close to playing or he has been at any point in the series.
Well, so one thing that I'll also throw out too, though, is some of this, and this isn't really anybody's fault, but this is kind of what it is. I will say that I think as fans and as people who saw Giannis on one leg in 2021, I think when we heard 2 to 4 weeks, everybody just said 2 weeks, right? We was like, oh yeah, 2 weeks. He's gonna be back in 2 weeks. That's perfect. Giannis. Oh yeah. It's the earlier timetable. And so I think where we are as a fan base at this point is we're a little bit frustrated. We feel like, wow, why is he not back yet? This is Giannis. What's the issue here? But the reality is, it could even be 5 weeks. Could it be? The thing is it's just a time frame. It's not set in stone. And so I say that to say that as fans, and we have these expectations, just know that sometimes they give you a timetable, but that doesn't mean everything's going to be perfect within that timetable too. So I agree with Kavika in the sense of if he can go, he's got to go. But I do think that we got to be smart about this too, just because like if there's a chance of doing material damage here or potentially, tearing something, having him out, impacting this next year while this is the playoffs and we got to go all out right now. We just got to kind of think about that, but also think about it from the perspective of the best case scenario is that we make it to the second round. But if we do something and we're out in the second, it's just tough.
Sheila in Milwaukee says, disagree. There's nothing soft about it. If he had the opportunity to be on the floor, he would be. I don't believe for 1 second he's sitting out soft. And again, that's everything that I hear as well. So, like I said, and JT, that's a great example you brought up about seeing Giannis after his leg got bitten back in 2021 and seeing him go out so quickly and getting back on the floor. It gives you this, he's a superhuman type of player and he's going to come back no matter what. And that's not always the case, right? Like that is hard to do at times. It just is. And here's what I would actually go a step further. Not to say he was misdiagnosed, but I think the Bucks were coy about the severity of grade 1 or I feel like they kind of played it up like it was something that it may not have been. And it was a little here than they led up to it being.
So one thing that I'll tell y'all, and again, this isn't a knock against the Bucks, right? But I do not trust this team at all when it comes to injury reporting. I don't. That's just kind of where I'm at. I might be in the minority here, but I don't trust this team at all when it comes to reporting injuries because it's always too much. It's always something that doesn't make sense. I'm not sure if it's intentional. I'm not sure, but it's always. And we saw that back with Chris Middleton and the vertical ramp earlier this year. We was talking about the ramp up, and I mean. Do either one of you trust this team when it comes to reporting injuries? I mean, I think there's some reasonable doubt there.
Pre-game yesterday, Doc basically said, no, they haven't done anything today. And post-game, he goes, they're very, very close. And I'm sitting there post-game going, that is completely opposite of what you just said 5 hours ago. So yes, smoke signals, everything. And I would be doing the same thing too if I were the front office.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's what it seems like. And Doc always seems like he doesn't know what's happening. He walks right past
the training room to get to the media room and then goes, I haven't been in there today. Oh, okay.
It's like, come on, man. Who Who are we fooling? But I get it. Seems like they don't. Yeah, I have no clue. My best player, I have no idea of his status. I don't even check on his. I have no doubt. Is he hurt? I don't know. Is he? I just he shows up. He shows up. That's kind of the where Doc goes with it. Let's take a break. Let's take a break right here. Keep your call. Give me your calls, text. Appreciate them. Keep them coming right here on the NicoletLaw.com talk and text line 414-799-1973.
7-3.
We're back on Bucks and 60. Wrap this thing up. Wrap this right now in the game.
It's Bucks in 60. Now here's your host, Trey Crosby.
We're back live at the game. Bucks in 60. I feel it. I feel the momentum. It's rising. Can the Bucks get this thing back to Milwaukee? That's the question. That's what everybody wants to know. That's what we're asking here. Can the Bucks get this thing back to Milwaukee? If they can, I feel great about the Bucks' chances. Home court advantage is real. JT, I thought the Bucks crowd, especially considering what was taking place, you look at there were I think that Bucks game 5 for the games of that round that were coming up. It was reported the Bucks had the lowest ticket get-in fees to get into the building from every game that was out there. You look at the prices to get into that Knicks and Knicks Philly. My goodness, it's gonna be a crazy atmosphere in Madison Square Garden tomorrow night. But there were low prices to get into Milwaukee, and that and maybe that was a part of it. Maybe I don't know. But their crowd was rocking last night, and they definitely caught. It was the energy was palpable. It was a great crowd. I thought they just did a phenomenal, excellent job of hyping the guys up and keeping everybody engaged. And folks and the players did a great job too. You saw Pat Bev, rallying guys up, and Bobby Portis. All of it was fun. I thought, to me, Indiana's crowd has been slightly underwhelming. It hadn't won a playoff game in such a long time, right? So I was slightly, I was unmoved. I've been unmoved so far by the Indiana Pacers crowd. And so I wonder, JT, you think this is their last opportunity? Because if they don't win, they wouldn't have an opportunity until round 2. What are you expecting from Indiana's crowd? It just has not been, again, from a team that hadn't been in the playoffs for a while. Typically, you just see that crowd that is just, excited. It's like white hot kind of noise that you're getting from one of those, like Bradley in 2017. I don't know. I haven't felt that, or at least haven't seen that or heard it. It hadn't come through on the television for Indiana. They've had some great moments, like when Halliburton got the game win. I thought they were, electric. Those three. I'm talking throughout the game, just bringing the energy. I think the best crowd was last night in Milwaukee. What do you think the crowd looks like in Indiana, and do you think that can be a factor for the Indiana Pacers as they try to close out the series?
Well, I think that crowd is going to be crazy. I think that crowd is going to be very loud. Again, we've said this numerous different times. They have not won a playoff series since 2014. They haven't been in the playoffs since 2020 to 2021. You got a young team, an energetic team. They play at a fast pace. They score a ton of points. They're gonna have, Caitlin Clark, right? She's not gonna suit up tomorrow night, but she'll be out there revving up the car, and I'm 100% convinced they'll do that. They'll have, whomever local celebrities there hyping everybody up. But having said that, the thing about that crowd though is I do think the Bucks can control it. If you come out and again, you start to belt the butt early, that crowd is going to turn into a nervous crowd, which turns into a dejected crowd, which turns into a disappointed crowd, right? So that's definitely an option for you. I think you can see that happening. I do think they're going to be fired up, though. They're going to be fired up, so the Bucks got to be ready for that. And I think the Bucks have to listen. Even if the nerves are there in the beginning, because this is a closeout game, the Bucks got to treat this like a closeout or elimination game. They got to do what they can to take that crowd out of it. Don't let that crowd be a factor.
Rich from Fondy says, "Let's go Bucks, let's go Bucks." Who was it on the YouTube who said they loved the show? So Mikey G. Mikey G, appreciate you for watching and listening to us. Mikey G, everybody watch us. JT, tonight, let's look around the NBA. Celtics and Heat. Celtics are up 4 right now. They're in a closeout game. 2-2 series tied. Mavericks, Clippers. You're seeing what's going on in Philly. Our guy, Kavika talked about he pushed the Bucks into the Eastern Conference Finals. Well, he took us all the way to the finals. And you see what's going on with the Philly and New York. New York leads that series 3-2. Cleveland leads the series and had a big block from Evan Mobley to end the game the other night against the Orlando Magic. They're up 3-2. So I think is that all series in the East except for Boston is a 3-2 series. So you have some interesting first round matchups. What are you looking at? When you look around, especially in the East, what are you seeing, especially from a team like Philly, from a New York, from whoever would have to face these guys in the second round, or what are you seeing out in the Eastern Conference right now?
What I'll say out of this Eastern Conference is I see teams that are not going down without a fight. I see that, and you saw that last night with Philly. 100% saw how they were. I mean, Tyrese Maxey, man, was on a whole new level last night with those those 3-pointers, those 2 3-pointers late. I just think you see teams where, because you would think that Philly was overwhelmed and undermatched, and they're fighting. Look, it's 3-2, and same with the Magic and the Cavaliers. I thought that Cleveland would have a pretty simple time with the Magic. I didn't think that Cleveland would really struggled there, and they're technically not, right. It's 3-2. They're on the verge of elimination, but I think the Magic team's going to keep fighting. Right? I think the Magic's going to come out and keep pounding. Right, they're going to keep fighting too. And again, Pacers, Bucks. The East is scrappy right now. The East is very scrappy right, but young too. You have some young teams in the East that are certainly trying to make an impact here too. And listen, I think at some point experience is going to matter, certainly in that second round, hopefully for the Bucks in the first. But I think you do have a lot of young, hungry teams that just want to fight and scrap and scrape their claw, and make their way into make their way into trying to win the conference. And I like it. I like what you see in the East. I think it's entertaining. I think it's exciting. And you got to be happy with the output right now.
It is entertaining. It is exciting, but it goes back to something that I've been talking about. I think for a while. I don't think a lot of these teams are good. I really don't, and that's why it's so disappointing that Giannis and Dame are out. Outside of Boston, I just don't think a lot of these teams are good. I look, and again, so not to kind of borrow what Kavik was talking about, but like Philly. I think Philly is solid. Now Maxey is a problem. 100%. Embiid is a problem, but I mean Embiid is clearly hampered. I mean, in a series where you really have a big going, because I think he gets worn down and his mobility is limited. But again, Max is a big time player right now. Jalen Brunson is a big time player. But again, just something you saw. DiVincenzo 3 for 10 last night. He was kind of rough. And again, if he plays better, maybe the Knicks win. I don't know, man. And the Pacers struggling with the Bucks, who have been out 2 of their top players for a couple of these games. So I don't know. I agree it's scrappy. I agree guys are hungry. And again, it leads to some fun results. But ultimately, I just don't think that these teams are very, very good. And I think that's why you're getting some of the results that you didn't. And again, maybe that's why the Bucks can potentially keep this series going. JT, what do you think? Give me your prediction. What happens tomorrow night at Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis, Indiana? The Bucks take on the Pacers.
I think the Bucks win tomorrow night. I know it may sound crazy, but I don't think this Pacers team. That's the first. I just don't. And I look at this guy. I look at these guys. I get it. You got Halliburton. Turner's played out of his mind from 3, and maybe not so much the last game. You had some anomalies with Siakam going for almost 40 in the first 2 games. I mean, I think the Bucks are an overall better team. They're a more experienced team. And I think if the Bucks keep going, I think they win it tomorrow night. And the real drama is going to be Game 7 in Milwaukee.
Do you think Giannis plays tomorrow?
Yes. I think Giannis plays tomorrow.
Andrew, same question.
I don't think we're playing on Saturday, but I'd gladly be wrong. If somebody can call in Steve Laban on Friday night, gosh, I'll be glad for somebody to do that. But if Giannis plays, we got a better chance.
Yeah, that's what I'm going with. If Giannis plays, I think the Bucks win. If Giannis play, I don't think they win. That's it. We're out of time. Have some fun, man. We appreciate everybody for listening to us tonight. From the crew, Trey Crosby third. Don't take no wooden nickels. Bucks is 7. Courage.